Urdu is a language I learned very, very late. So I wouldn't really understand, but it was that sound itself. You hear the word Hussein and that's enough for your heart.
What's the most difficult feedback you've received?
But one specific one which I could remember, and it's only a learning process.
The competition level, is there such a thing?
You can't ever think that you're better than someone when it comes to reciting.
I love when you say that your dad is your inspiration.
Inspiration even is a small word. You could even consider him ustad. You have to pay for your vocal costs, your videography, your video editing. There's so much. And Salim uncle happily said, I'll do that.
That's the beauty of our community and why this podcast is called the KHOJA Connection.
It's a zimedari, it's a responsibility, a duty on your shoulders. Leave minutes, in a second, your voice can be taken away from Bibi Fatima. Salamullahi alayhi.
Slightly controversial, but something that needs to be talked about as well. People saying, well, no, it should be free. Because I'm not going to pay because it's the Ahlul Bayt.
With me...
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to the KHOJA Connection podcast, a podcast by KHOJA, Growing Through Conversations. My name is Durain Hirji, and today we have brother Yusuf Okera joining us to share his journey about recitation, the ups, downs, and all the in-betweens. So, assalamu alaikum, brother Yusuf Okera.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
It's so nice to have you here today in Birmingham, not in Stanmore.
Indeed.
Thank you so much for taking the time today. I know you have a very, very busy day. But I was particularly interested in your story because I was told that your journey started as a young little boy, and you're an amazing reciter today. You've achieved so much. You have such an amazing following as well. Alhamdulillah. How did it start? Where did it start? What was your very first recollection of recitation and the love for it?
A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. First of all, thank you very much for giving me this blessed opportunity. First of all, before I start, my story isn't that interesting maybe compared to others. However, it was a very natural start. I wouldn't say there was that much of a story to my debut of reciting. I started at the age of 4, where I'll tell you a very interesting story to start with, in fact. I recited at Haythari, South London last week. And alhamdulillah, I recited pretty well. And an uncle asked me, do you remember the first time you recited? And in my mind, as to what I was told by seniors in the community, I was told that I recited, well, my first qasida was in Babul Murad Centre in Wembley in London. But he asked me, do you remember the very first time you used your voice to recite something? And he said, you were in your dad's goad, your dad's arms. And we were in Bustan-e-Zahra, maybe you were at the age of 2 or 3 or even 4 maybe. And he said, you recited Dua Imam Zamana for the very first time in your voice. And he said, I still remember that until today. And he said, seeing you grow into a young man today, it's like a dream come true. However, when it comes to Manqabat and Noha, I started at the age of 4 at Bustan-e-Zahra, where I recited my first Marshia alongside my father, which he was my main inspiration from the very beginning. I have not learnt from anyone. I have learnt myself, alhamdulillah, along the years. And with the assistance of my parents and alhamdulillah, the Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I managed to reach here today.
Wow.
Alhamdulillah.
I love when you say that your dad is your inspiration, because I think for a lot of little boys, their father is an amazing role model.
No, the inspiration even is a small word. You could even consider him ustad, which means teacher. Ustad is definitely the man that taught me, and alhamdulillah, it's because of him I am where I am today, alhamdulillah.
Yeah.
And no doubt my mother as well, of course.
Of course, yeah. But the involvement of the parent in the achievement and success of their children you are a good example of that, of how that panned out.
Yeah.
And that's something that's commendable.
Alhamdulillah.
Tell me, what was your first feeling when you recited in public?
Until today, there are nerves that do kick in sometimes. It depends where you are, of course, and that's just natural. For a reciter to have nerves, it's not a worrying thing. You have to have some nerves. You have to feel some sense of worry in order to be successful in the end. But in the beginning, yeah, it was a hard challenge, exposing myself to the public, going outside different communities, reciting in places I've never been to in my life, seeing faces I've never ever seen. It was hard, but I guess as years go along, that confidence starts to increase more and more and becomes a habit, and it's a day-to-day thing now, alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah.
But you still get a bit of nerves when you
Yeah, I
hold the
mean, here and
mic.
there it depends.
What gives you the nerves?
Yeah, so for example, I remember very closely, I went to Canada for the first time for Eid al-Ghadir 2 years ago. Now, of course, because I've not actually been officially invited there, I was thinking of many things before I even went to recite, especially Jaffrey Community Center, JCC. That's one of the largest communities in the world. I'm sure you may have visited, maybe you may know about it. I remember when the Muki actually called me and I was going forward, and in front of me I just see a river of humans, like I would say minimum 5 to 6 thousand people. And I was just like thinking, wow, this is a different experience for me. So it just depends on the experience, how many people there are, what you're about to recite, especially if you're about to recite something that's new, maybe something that you hear recently, but you don't practice it that much even. You hear it once or twice and you have the guts to go out there and try and execute it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is it the judgment of people?
It's not the judgment of people,
Or
but
the look? Because
yeah.
we have this in our community as well sometimes, which we want to, slowly we want to change that. When somebody's coming to give their energy, because that's what you do, it's quite exhausting after you come out of
Absolutely.
that. And I'm going to ask you to share that as well, your feeling after you've recited as well. It's taking a lot out of you, and you're giving your time to inspire people. That's quite a big, important role that you have.
Oh, yeah.
And when you have the eyes on you, the judgments possibly as well, but also that feeling of, oh my God, I need to remain humble throughout that. So tell me.
I think you hit the nail similar, well, related to humbleness. It's a zimedari, it's a responsibility, a duty on your shoulders. So as you said, you used a very good word of inspiring people. You could go out there. If you inspire that one soul, your niyat, your intention has to be clean while you're doing that process, of course. And if your mind goes anywhere else, then my belief is that leave minutes, in a second, your voice can be taken away from Bibi Fatima, salamullahi alayha. That's how severe and crucial azadari and zikr is. And there are advantages, there are disadvantages depending on how your route is. Yeah.
How do you self-manage yourself? Like when you're coming up and now you have the mic.
Yeah.
The mic is a bit of a power, it's got the power not just because your voice is going everywhere, but you're now in a position where you're going to, how at that point what do you tell yourself?
Nowadays it's more the situation where I don't have a mic. So that's what stresses me out more.
Oh.
Having a mic, alhamdulillah, that's a great thing to have. I mean, sometimes you're in situations where you don't even have a mic and you just have to recite with your natural voice. And that gets difficult. Why? Because of different scales, pitches. Your voice gets tired, as you said. You're aware that we attend various programs in a day and it gets really busy. So having a mic, I mean, makes your life easier. And as I said, it's been many years, alhamdulillah. I've held a mic in my hand for many years. So it's something that I've just become used to naturally. It's not the case with everyone, but I guess some people are naturally talented to deal with certain things.
MashaAllah, amazing. And it comes with habit as well.
Yeah,
it comes
definitely.
with practice as well.
And seeing my dad as well, of course. My dad, of course, he started holding a mic, I mean, earlier than I came into this world. Of course, he started in the 1980s back home. But yeah, of course, standing next to him, there would be times I'd stand next to him and I wouldn't know what he's reciting. It's just I'm listening and processing and digesting everything he's saying, I mean, reciting, even though I wouldn't understand. Even at that young age, I only got to know Urdu like 2-3 years ago to that full extent.
Wow.
So yeah, dad was definitely a great
So your dad was a
contribution.
reciter before you?
Yeah, he started many years ago, as I said, in the 1980s back home in Africa.
So it started with modeling.
Yeah.
It started with copying him.
Yeah.
He involved you in his journey as
Yeah.
well. And when did you become a believer of recitation? Because obviously at the beginning, when you're just copying somebody,
Yeah.
obviously your father, you're modeling him, it's just an exercise of doing. When did you take a step back and started getting inspired by yourself?
Yeah. So I started taking things into my own hands, I'd say at the age of 14. That's a long time, 13 years after you've actually started reciting. Of course, I started at the age of 4. I was very young to know what's happening, what I'm reciting, the words. I had no clue of what I was saying. But around that age, 13, 14, things started changing. And I knew that I was passionate about reciting, and I had a very, very strong connection with Mola. And I knew that this is something I can continue.
Tell me more about this passion
The
and
passion.
this connection and the passion. Where did it come from? What is your passion?
Yeah, so tarbiyat, as I said, when it comes to mom and dad, I Noha Khani, listening to Mankabat, Kasida, Quran, Dua, Ziyarat, that was something around me 24/7. Be it waking up in the morning, there's certain reciters I would have to listen to in order to go to the car. Otherwise, I wouldn't go in the car. I'd sometimes bunk off school and tell dad, look, I'm not feeling well and I don't want to go. Unless he switches on a certain Noha, Kalam, Yology for me, then I'd allow to go. Even when I would be coming back home, lunchtime, my mom would put food for me on the table. I would have to have a phone or an iPad, a tablet in front of me to listen to Mir Hassan Mir. Or at that time, it was even Fatima Ladak, a very prominent name, someone I'd listened to a lot at that age, at a young age. And passion only comes with receiving inspiration as well, though. You start to realize that you enjoy something as you hear different people that are doing it themselves. That gives you the opportunity to learn a bit more about what's happening and how you can do it in your own unique style. That's what it is.
What feeling did it give you? I mean, you wouldn't go to the car until and unless you heard that.
Yeah.
What was it that it was giving you in your heart?
Of course, at that age, as I said, Urdu is a language I learned very, very late. So I wouldn't really understand, but it was that sound itself. You know, you hear the word Hussein and that's enough for your heart. It gives sukoon to your heart. And I mean, my whole day would feel amazing. I'd come back home, great days, alhamdulillah.
Wow, that's
Alhamdulillah.
really inspiring. So you sometimes get inspired by your own recitation?
To a certain extent.
Because then that's how you know whether other
Yeah.
people are getting inspired
Yeah,
or
to a
not.
certain extent. Of course, you see the feedback and the reviews you get at the end, of course. So,
course.
I mean, it's not difficult to find out if you've done a good job or
Yeah.
if there's improvement to be made.
What's the most difficult feedback you've received? Or the one that really hurt you?
Yeah. There was someone, of course, I can't ever mention names of anyone, but there's been many times like that. But one specific one which I could remember, and it's only a learning process.
course.
Alhamdulillah, if it wasn't for that, then I wouldn't be here today.
Definitely. It's always with the intention to do better. of
Absolutely,
course, yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, there were certain people that maybe felt I didn't have the ability to become a professional reciter or a reciter that can actually appeal to the crowd in a professional manner. Yes, there were many times people would say, look, maybe this isn't the path for you. You can go other paths. There's Quran, there's du'as, there's ziyarats. That could be a bit easier. You know, this came a bit more from the Pakistani crowd as well. With KHOJAs, I received a lot of support in the beginning. Pakistanis, as the recognition and people started getting to know about Yusuf Okera, that's when more like different schools and different cultures started supporting. But from the Pakistani community in the beginning, it was a bit difficult because, of course, you have to follow their standards. There's laws of how you pronounce words, of your adab, your respect, and all of these things played a big role. Of course, coming from a KHOJA household, our teachings are very different to Pakistanis. They have different ways of thinking about things, especially when it comes to Azadari. That's a very, very crucial thing in their lives. So yes, there were times people would say, look, maybe find another route, you know, you could do something else. But I never stopped because I'd be also practicing with senior people, fellow colleagues around me that helped me about. Alhamdulillah. And that just made me go forward.
So you didn't give up?
I never gave up, never gave up. Especially my dad, he'd always hear people telling me these things as well, by the way. It wasn't that I was being told one to one. Half the time my dad would hear, but he'd always tell me, look, it's a good thing they're telling you. You have to be prepared for criticism. However, you have to move forward and just
Did you
keep on putting your
sometimes
time
feel,
in.
no, that's it, I'm done now?
Never. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah, never. Never.
So what kept you going?
But as I said, the support from my parents, but it's just something that I felt like I wanted to do as well. I actually enjoyed doing reciting, and especially because I used to go practice every Thursday in Stanmore. I don't know if you ever heard about Youth Azadari Drive. It still goes on until today. Shout out to Abdul Uncle Virji, Sohail Uncle Chauhan, Riaz Uncle Rajab Ali, and Muhammad Uncle Bandali, and a few of the other elders that were there. If it wasn't for them who actually started this initiative, every Thursday while the program would go on in the center, we'd be in an annex building just practicing any kalam every Thursday by fail. And I mean, looking up to seniors like that, actually, it lit that flame in my heart. Alhamdulillah.
Yeah.
Alhamdulillah.
And you mentioned that you only learned Urdu three years ago. So I know that language is a big barrier when it comes to recitation, and a lot of youngsters today can't even speak Gujarati properly, let alone Urdu. So what would you say to people who are struggling with language? And I know that a lot of people during Matam, they do get bored because they don't understand what they're, like you said yourself, you didn't know what you were saying. They don't understand what is being said. So how do you think that can be, like, what kept you going? How do you think we can tackle that?
I went through that for many years. I mean, reading from a paper in Urdu, of course, but I don't understand a word I'm saying. I know the scenes, I know a bit of what's happening, of course, because it's about Abdullah alayhi salam's Masaib. However, of course, for many years, I would say more than 12 years, I didn't exactly know what's happening in that poetry. But again, this is something I took in my own hands, where I understood the importance of speaking Urdu, not even understanding speaking. Why? Because I work with people in Pakistan to produce studio work, nohas, qasidas in the studio. Now, you have to be able to communicate with people abroad. If you can't communicate with them, that means you won't get that much of a good job. And that's no one else to blame. You can only blame myself because, of course, I haven't learned the language. In order to get a good job done, I have to learn the language, communicate with them in their language. And that's one thing that really pushed me to learn Urdu, because I knew that I want to record, I mean, for the years ahead and speak to people as well, which is the main thing out of everything. Of course, studio comes after, but that's what inspired me to learn Urdu a bit more than anything. The fact that I have to communicate with people, pick up calls. I mean, you could pick up the call and they ask you a simple question like, "Kaise hain aap? How are you doing? Khairiyat se hu?" I mean, even words like that, I couldn't even respond back with at that time. But of course, it's just something that I learned like in days. I mean, I wake up in the morning, speak to my mom in Urdu, and she'd be confused, like, when did you learn? How did you learn? Even my parents didn't know that time when I was trying to learn Urdu. They weren't really aware.
Yeah. So where did so of course it's because of the fact that you wanted to connect with people from Pakistan for the purpose of your work, but also what made you just step into that, and how did your experience of recitation change? Because now you understand the poetry, you understand the depth of it. How did that experience, and did you feel a change in even the quality of your recitation as soon as you understood it?
Definitely, 10 times. I mean, understanding the Masaib, we can never actually understand what happened, but with the words which poets use to write kalams, I mean, that takes us to another level. Like, just imagine being in Karbala listening to certain kalams when you're actually in Bainul Haramain. There's certain kalams that, if you listen to, or let's say a well-known reciter like Mir Hassan Mir Saab, for example, he recites that kalam for you and you actually understand word by word. Especially these days, you receive translations on videos as well. So that was another thing that helped me, because I'd actually just be looking at translations. I'd be looking at different words, trying to pick it up slowly. And it definitely had a big impact on my reciting career, definitely, because I started understanding, of course, and that's all you want to know, what you're reciting. And that also changes your delivery and your stance in front of the audience as well, though, because on certain words there has to be different tones, different
Yes.
emphasis. So these things also, techniques started getting introduced. They were introduced to me as well, of course.
So your journey
Yeah.
as what is the name of your career? Is it reciting career?
Reciting, Noha Khan. No,
Noha Khan.
I'm classified as a Noha Khan.
Noha Khan.
Or
Okay.
Mankabat Khan. Noha
Mankabat
Khan
Khan.
is for eulogy and Mankabat Khan is for Qasida, of course.
Excellent. Very interesting. So that journey, tell me about the process, because a lot of people, I'm sure, would want to get into what you're getting into or what you got into successfully. And, in a journey like this, some people help you, some people don't help you.
Yeah.
You don't know where to start. You don't know what to do. Talk to me about your challenges.
I remember I wanted to get into the studio many years ago. I mean, it wasn't that difficult to access, but of course, because of our limited contacts coming from KHOJA community, it's majority of the Pakistanis that produce the studio work and the kalams back in Pakistan. So there was a few people I asked, I remember, and I knew they were doing recordings themselves, or maybe in similar cases, I knew of people that knew of those that are doing recordings. And at that time, many people weren't ready to help, but I mean, that made me think for quite a while, why don't they want to support? Why don't they want to give me the contacts that they have? Is it because they're too worried that if they give the contacts, maybe I could succeed along the years? God knows, you don't know how people think. But then slowly, as I said, I just started getting things into my own hands. And even with the studio, it wasn't even my father that got the contacts for me. I got it myself. And I got in contact with very, very big names that work in Karachi. I mean, they work with all the reciters, which are well known at the moment. And it was a hard challenge. I mean, in front of your face, someone telling you that, do you get it, that we don't have the number, or we can't help you or something like that. It made me feel a bit awkward. However, I knew at the end there would be a way. Wherever there's a will, of course, there's a way, and it would be possible to do. And alhamdulillah, when I got access to those numbers, they happily helped me, especially being in Pakistan. Like, people would say they're too busy to actually do it for you to record, but they were the ones that actually supported me being there in Karachi more than the local communities
So
at that time.
what it seems to me is maybe there's a lot of competition.
I mean, to a certain
How does
extent.
it work? The competition level, is there such a thing in that field?
Alhamdulillah, with me personally, I get along with everyone in the UK. Majority of the reciters for many years. Mostly because they know my dad. Of course, my dad, as I said, he's been reciting. So them being youngsters, they'd see my dad reciting. And of course, they knew he has a son called Yusuf Okera and whatnot. So of course, alhamdulillah, I get along with everyone. Competition, I mean, that's in anything and everything you do. Be it any aspect of life, you're always going to have to be competitive. And I mean, with this, the difference is that you can't ever think that you're better than someone when it comes to reciting. Yes, I mean, you can have your own self-objectives, self-targets, but that doesn't mean that you start publicizing it to the world and you tell someone, look, I'm better than you. Or you even show it in certain actions, like actions speak louder than words. It's not difficult to make someone feel lower than you or something like that.
Of course, no, absolutely.
So competition is definitely there.
There's
I would
healthy
say
competition as well.
there is definitely healthy competition,
I mean,
definitely.
yeah.
I mean, you're seeing stuff like Shia Voice and these things as well. I
course,
mean,
yeah.
also many people have their own opinions on those things, but to a certain extent, I think it's a good initiative that's going on, helping people to come forward and whatnot.
Yeah, absolutely. And what advice would you give to somebody who is struggling, who wants to get into it? Maybe three tips or three advice you would give.
What aspect are you coming from? Would that come from language, confidence? I mean, there's so much advice you can give.
Yeah, if you had to just summarize three things that they can focus on to get into this, what would you say?
Number one is, the main thing is you have to learn Urdu, definitely. I can tell you now that if you don't learn Urdu and your Urdu isn't at a good level, eventually, I mean, not all the time people come telling you to your face, but eventually they might. And it's definitely the fact that they've definitely told someone or the other, and that topic it's alive anyways. So you have to be working on your Urdu in order to understand the kalams you're reciting, in order to execute them in the way that it should be executed. Secondly is humbleness, and may Allah increase humbleness in all of us, inshallah, and keep us humble, inshallah. But without humbleness, as I said in the beginning, I believe BB can take your voice in seconds. And why I say this is because this has been seen in different cases. You see different things happening around the world. People are acting in different ways, be it good or bad. But you see how Bibi also has, Bibi is everything. Bibi is everything. Bibi is the nizam, she's the arrangement, she's everything. It's Bibi's son's pulsa, and if Bibi wants, she can take that away. So the main thing is to know who you're doing it for, why you're doing it, and I mean, there will definitely be success in that. And Alhamdulillah, being at such a young age, I've seen a lot of blessings in my life because of maybe some small good acts which I may have done. Special thanks to my parents, Alhamdulillah. And that's just the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Thirdly, when it comes to azadari, it's competition. That's the worst thing which is coming these days. I mean, we see it more in the western side. I thought you'd see it more in places like Asia, Pakistan and countries like that, but it's actually more visible here in countries in the western sides, be it UK, Canada, Australia, different places. You can see that tension between reciters. A few communities also have tension. Certain reciters can't go to certain communities because of politics. You hear these things as well. It's not that out there, but it is a problem. So competition shouldn't be there. You shouldn't ever compete. Don't ever think you're better than someone.
I think it goes back to what you were saying about intention. I think that when your intention is clean, pure, and for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then there's space for everybody, because actually you could be inspiring a certain type of people and someone else can be inspiring another type of people, and that, there's space for everyone, to be honest, isn't it? So I think when you keep that spirit and that mindset of, exactly let's collaborate rather than let's compete, and and that's what makes the difference between good and better,
opposite, basically.
Exactly. But you mentioned, as we were just having a very casual conversation before we started the podcast, that there is also a financial element to this career, that and I'm assuming this is in parallel to probably your actual job, or sure. So this is like a parallel thing.
Sure.
So there's two elements: it's financial, and also there's the time element as well. So talk to me about this financial challenge, perhaps, that you may have encountered, and how did you manage to overcome that?
Yeah, so I was passionate about, like, let's say studio recordings, for example. There's also the aspect of actually attending places when it comes to finance, but the studio aspect of it, I liked listening to studio things from a very young age, and I felt that I wanted to be a part of it. But that was at a very young age. I think I was around maybe 15, 16 years old. And at that time, my dad was working at the airport. He'd be doing early starts, late nights. And of course, he has other responsibilities to pay for. And I'm also the only child, no siblings at all. I'm the one and only. So, of course, my dad would have to handle many things at home. And I wouldn't want to put that pressure on him about thinking about thousands of pounds to do a studio recording. I always had that thought in my mind that my happiness should be their happiness. Like, I don't want to put him in any stress or anything. However, then I started opening up, and I had the conversation with Dad, and I told him, look, I want to try it, give it a shot. And he called someone and he made the arrangements for me. And at that time, we started very, very simple. Even though there was access to do professional recordings and high level, I started slow. I just started by recording a few marshiyas, which recited still without any tempo, any background noise, any chorus support like vocalists, nothing like that at all. I did it all alone, just recited a kalam, 5, 6 of them, put them on my YouTube channel at the age of, like, I think 16, 17. And as people started giving me good feedback, that's when I realized, look, I can maybe give it a shot at the studio. Let's try one more time. And that's when I then took the professional level. But in order to do a good studio album, you need the finance. And that comes into, alhamdulillah, many family members in London, around the globe also did support me at that time when my dad approached them and spoke to them for assistance, of course. But similarly, KHOJA, which is a very great organization, well known for their services towards Ahlul Bayt and the Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Salim Uncle Rahmatullah had actually approached me a few years ago, and he said, look, I see your passion for studio, and I know that you have been trying to do it for quite a while now. That was all a coincidence as well, the way he messaged me saying like, you have a passion for it, I know you like it and whatnot. And he goes, I'd like to give it a shot. Let's maybe try record a few kalams, present it on the KHOJA YouTube page. We could also collaborate on yours, I mean, as well. But let's see if the youth maybe connect with it, and let's see the outcome we get. So I said, yeah, let's give it a shot. I mean, because there was too much going on at that time, we didn't get to finish all of them. But they assisted me with a kalam which I recorded in honor of Imam Raza alayhi salam, a manqabat. And that happened very quickly as well. I remember speaking to Salim Uncle, but out of the 6 kalams, so I had 6 in total, which we'd planned to do. He had actually sponsored me for 6. And he said, look, sort everything out. And these costs include the poet. You have to give him hadiah, a gift of token, of course, for his time, for writing a whole fresh new piece for you. Whoever makes you the tune, you also have to give them some sort of token. There are people that support you in the back, supporting vocalists. They're known as chorus team. They do your backing vocals for you in the back. That takes them a bit of time as well. You have to pay them. Then you have to pay for your vocal costs, your videography, your video editing. There's so much that you have to split. And Salim Uncle happily said, I'll do that all for you in 1 year. I mean, just in 1-2 months. But it didn't work out. And Alhamdulillah, he helped me with 1 kalam, and we've discussed a few future projects which we're working on as well, inshallah.
Yeah, and I think that's the beauty of our community and why this podcast is called the KHOJA Connection.
Okay.
Because
good reveal.
connection, isn't it? Between people, you know, and the fact that KHOJA is that organization that is actually quite invisible when it comes to the grassroots, but actually is doing so much in the background, such as helping reciters like you come up and create a career and inspire people. And I'm sure other reciters would want to know more about how to do that and things like that. I think that's a whole new conversation. But it's great to know that you had the support. And I think support system is very important in your success story as well.
And it's a good feeling to actually, you know, many people
believe in you.
Yeah, exactly. And many people prefer like remaining anonymous when they assist you with these types of things, because of course they have their own reasons. But when they allow you to say it, it's a very good feeling. As you said, the KHOJA connection, especially when it's someone from your own community and not someone external, it's a very good feeling, alhamdulillah.
Yeah, I recently heard a talk by Sayyid Ammar, actually. He gave a talk at the Zara Trust recently, and he said something really beautiful. And he said that there are 2 types of donors. The donors or the sponsors or people who actually donate money or time. People who don't say, like you said, they have their own reasons for not saying. They want to remain Bande Khuda or whatever. And then there's the people who actually want to say it because actually there's a value to it. It encourages others to give, you know, because they're thinking if they're giving, if they're adding value that way, then maybe we can give. So it's really creating that, you know, I can give too. That inspirational mindset, basically.
Absolutely. And it's exactly what we need for the upcoming generations. You definitely need it. Otherwise, it's not going to go that far, of course. You need certain icons to show that they're taking certain actions to do certain things.
The leaders are stepping up.
Definitely,
absolutely.
Definitely.
Tell me about the time constraint or the time that you're putting into this and how you're managing to balance.
I was just speaking, this is something I discuss daily with different people.
Yeah.
But a few days ago, I was having this conversation with the family, and they were asking me, you know, you're a student as well, you're studying in university, you've left your hometown, which was London, by the way, Stanmore, Northwest. I left London to start a whole new chapter here in Birmingham, of course, for my professional side, university to pursue in business management. That's what I'm currently studying, second year of university. It gets difficult. But as I said, everything, if you have something as a habit already from the beginning, then it becomes very easy to do. With me, I like getting things done rapidly, like on the spot. That's what I prefer to do, at least. If it doesn't happen, then it is what it is. You just have to pick up all the mess and do what you can. But since primary school, I'd be getting homework homework, which even if you give it late, I mean, you're not going to get detention or get any consequences. But I already had that habit. When I get homework, my mom and dad, they'd make me sit down, work on it. I'd go to my room, maybe read about it again. That started from primary school, simple things. And then secondary school, of course, that gets a bit more serious because you have GCSEs. That period was very difficult at high school because that's when my name started growing and people started getting to know about me more. That was a difficult task, but because it was the period of GCSEs, that time period was crucial for me and stressful. But I was attending after school workshops and doing my own things to make sure that I'm not missing out. So in that sense, alhamdulillah, I've always had the habit of staying disciplined and just making sure I get things done today rather than tomorrow, because I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. My target would always be just get it done, get it out of your hands and just get it finished. And then just go to Azadari and do what you have to, which is also another duty. They're both very important. Both very
So
important.
when did you learn to balance that? Because it's not something I'm sure that
Yeah.
that came straight away.
Yeah.
You must have had some moments of where you feel that imbalance.
Yeah.
And then you realize, okay, I need to find a way to balance.
Yeah.
So when did that moment come? When did you realize it was something too overwhelming for
Yeah.
you, or what happened?
It's something that's introduced to you from a young age, depending on your lifestyle. We'd be attending majalis every day in Muharram, like 2 to 3 different programs, different venues, and I'd be getting home for like 3, 4 a.m. and then I have to go to school at like 8 a.m. again, wake up with zombie eyes. But I mean, all of those nights taught me, those were the nights that taught me, look, you can do Azadari at the same time, but you also have to have your school and your education running as well perfectly. So that taught me a big thing. Like, we'd be going to majalis until late night. My dad would still have to drop me to school every morning regardless. There wouldn't be any excuse. So he was basically teaching, well, both my parents. My mom would wake me up in the morning, make for me breakfast. Primary school, my mom would drop me to school because we were only like 5 minutes away. So that was a walking distance. It wasn't that difficult. And it would make life easier for me. But yeah, that importance was definitely introduced as I got into high school and I started taking things into my own hands again.
Wow.
With my life, I've just been independent, to be honest with you, alhamdulillah. And it's a good thing. It's a very good thing. Until today, alhamdulillah. And that's how I plan to be until the end, inshallah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You mentioned you had some objectives
Yeah.
for your career.
Yeah.
Obviously, you've got the business management university course that you're
Yeah.
doing, but also you've got this career now, parallel career.
Yeah.
What's your plan? Like, where do you see yourself in 5-10 years?
So with the reciting aspect of it, that's a hard question. No one can answer because, of course, we don't know if we'll wake up tomorrow. However, the plan is always just to remain where I am. That's all it is. Simply, I don't want to let go of it, and I don't want to do anything a bit more than what I'm doing. I simply want to be where I am right now and just simply serve the Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam with the capabilities I have in my hands, and whatever I can give, inshallah, that's all I'll continue to give.
So you want to remain consistent.
Remain consistent, definitely. Yeah, that's the word you can use.
I think consistency
Consistency
is key, isn't it?
It's definitely key. It's very important.
really
It's very
key.
important. And it's easy to lose as well. It's easy to lose depending on how you are as a person. If you just lose that concentration and that focus drops, then I mean, that passion can definitely drop. But inshallah, the plan is to remain consistent, and my schedule is helping me remain consistent as well.
Yeah.
I mean, after this, I've got to go for another 2 programs.
Yes, I know. You're a busy man.
No, astaghfirullah, not at all. Alhamdulillah, it's a great blessing from Allah, and I can't thank Him enough.
Yeah.
I can't thank Him enough.
Alhamdulillah.
Honestly, alhamdulillah.
Tell me about the time when you finish reciting. Sometimes maybe you recite for a longer time than other time. And I think a lot of people don't realize that you're giving that value. You're inspiring people. People are crying. People are connecting with the Ahlul Bayt through your voice, mashallah. Obviously, praise be to the Lord who has given you that voice.
Alhamdulillah.
And what's your energy level afterwards? What happens to you after? I think people need to know that a reciter is not just a robot that we're just playing a tape, and there's a lot going on before the preparation of it, the aftermath of it. How? Tell me in a very sort of realistic way what happens.
Yeah, so let's say I'm in a place like Iraq, for example. When we go from Muharram or Bain, it's 50 degrees. It's scorching hot. We can start there and then maybe come to local. So when I'm in a place like there, of course, there's millions of people. I'd be called to different hotels to recite, or sometimes in the shrine. I'd just be sat there. Majority of the time, that's what it is. I'm sat there, and a huge crowd just comes around me, and they just then continue to request for specific kalams to be recited. It could add up to maybe 40 to 50 minutes of that one sitting. After that, of course, there are other programs that I have to go and recite at, so I don't really have an option of what to do. But sometimes, I mean, you just prefer to go to Abba Abdullah alayhi salam at the end and just say, Alhamdulillah, thank you for the opportunity, and reflect on your services and reflect on your day-to-day life and reflect on your life itself, and remember the blessings that you've been blessed with. And not everyone receives this blessing. So sometimes you just want that time to yourself. In Iraq, in Karbala, when you're in front of the holy shrines, the holy domes, but you don't always get the opportunity because people want to book you in and stuff. So fair enough. I mean, we also serve from our side. When it comes to the UK, Alhamdulillah, it's, as I said, it's something I've been doing for many years. I don't see that sense of frustration. I'm not someone that's moody. I'm someone that's always happy. Well, majority of the time, unless you really annoy me. But once
It's good that it's on record now.
Yeah.
Because your future wife needs to see this.
So once I finish 40, 50 minutes of reciting, I mean, majority of the time in the UK, you only get like 10 minutes to recite, be any center, because there's long programs, long schedules. But my voice becomes more fresh after I recite, because it's like a warm-up. Let's say you go to the gym, before you pick up those weights, you have to do some sorts of push-ups or chin-ups, or get your arms ready, because if you start picking the weights up straight away, then you could maybe dislocate some parts of your body. It's the same with your voice. If you don't start practicing, then the projection of your voice won't increase. And yeah.
Yeah. And I think there's a huge value in the impact that you're giving, the inspiration that you're giving. And I want to bring up I mean, slightly controversial, but something that needs to be talked about as well, which is the, you talked about the hadiyah when it comes to, the poet, the person who's putting together the tune. There's all the little bits that leads to then you reciting, but then there's you. So tell me, have you has there been any people saying, well, no, it should be free, I'm not going to pay for it because
everyone says.
Isn't it, because I'm not going to pay because it's the Ahlul Bayt and it should be free. But then you're giving so much of your time as well. And, we're living in this world. It's a material world. Of course, it's not the be all and end all, but it's still, you still have to pay bills.
Absolutely.
You have to
your own
eat,
things waiting for you.
Isn't it? Definitely. So how does that come into
especially
play?
being a young man, I think it appeals even more, because I have university time that sometimes maybe, sometimes, well, back then, of course, in high school days, sometimes I'd bunk off high school to go to certain programs even, because that's what I was passionate about, and I'd want to go for that program. But until today, definitely, as you said, majority of the world says that you should be reciting for free. There's a small percentage, not a small percentage, but maybe half the percentage these days now feel that, it's my time, it's my talent, and I'm actually providing my services to the community, so I deserve something in return. With me, it's never been the case of demanding, and I'm not only saying this here, I've said this at Imam Hussein TV 3 once as well, when I discussed the same topic with Haji Haidar Al-Qazzaz, and he asked me, have you ever charged in your life? Do you plan to charge? Or what is your opinion on charging? Me personally, I don't charge, and I plan not to charge, inshallah. That's because of the tarbiyat of my parents. My dad has always repeated the sincerity levels that we should have when reciting. And of course, because he started in Kenya, he started in Africa, he started in the old days. Like they saw a very different time of seniors handling things. At that time, of course, the way a senior would speak to you would be different to how they speak to you now, because that's back home. They'd want to discipline you. So it's not the same right now. However, when it comes to myself, I mean, there's other people that I don't blame for
course.
charging. Of course, everyone
It's a
has their own.
choice.
Everyone has
I
their,
think it's a
absolutely,
choice. There's nothing
absolutely.
wrong with the people who are
Yeah,
asking
yeah.
because it's
Yeah.
their time and value.
Yeah,
I
I'm not
think.
saying I'm a rich man
Of course, no,
to
but
say that I'm not
you're
charging,
making
but
that choice. Yeah.
exactly, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
I know at the end of the day, let's say this life is so temporary that tomorrow one of my parents could pass away from this world. God forbid, na'udhu billah. May Allah bless them with a long life.
La
But I
ilaha.
know that if I ever went opposite to what they told me, I know that they wouldn't be happy as well. But before them, Bibi has to be happy. But they're the wasila, alhamdulillah, my parents. It's because of them I've never ever decided to charge. I don't plan to charge. Yes, sometimes it does come to your mind. Shaitan is definitely
I mean,
there.
I wouldn't say shaitan.
Yeah, it's not shaitan
It's not
even. It's not shaitan, but because of how I take it.
Right.
You know, because of how I
Your
have been.
understanding of it, yeah.
I mean, along the years, it's something that I've not done.
Yeah.
So to me, it's something that's now taking me away from my normal life. Do you get me? It's something now I'm changing myself because maybe other people are doing it, or it's because it's become so normalized now. So in that sense, I would say to me, it's like something now is taking me behind from my iman, and my taqwa levels are now decreasing. But alhamdulillah, it's never been the case. But sometimes, as I said, you do reach that level. Maybe let's say you're having a very hard time in life financially, and you could be thinking, look, this is my only way of income, and if I want, I can actually ask for it. But still, no problem, it's okay. With every difficulty comes ease.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah. I think that's a very good ayat that you've used. After every difficulty comes ease, because, you go through a journey and there's always a lesson learned from the journey.
Yeah.
And what's, your feeling of, let's say you've gone through a recitation, in a mosque or in a place, or even in Iraq.
Yeah.
And people come to you and tell you, wow, I'm sure there must have been people coming to saying, your voice is inspiring. I had tears. I managed to connect with the Ahlul Bayt. What's your feeling at that point?
There's not many words you can say. I mean, half the time I'm ashamed because we are genuinely nothing. The smallest of services that we are giving from our side is actually nothing, because there's actually people out there that are also doing the same thing in harder circumstances. There's people that are actually spreading the name for Abba Abdullah alayhi salam, and they could be coming home, but they don't know that their life is about to be taken away. For us, we have the freedom, alhamdulillah. Someone like myself, I mean, everything I have shelter, I have somewhere to stay, I can eat, I have parents, I have everything I need, alhamdulillah. So for me to be praised, I don't deserve it. I don't feel I deserve that praise from anyone. But alhamdulillah, everyone is very, very kind, and I am grateful for everyone's support. Definitely. It's definitely been the case where every time after I recite, even if it's one person that comes and tells me mashallah, and they genuinely say that from their heart, that means a lot to me. And
well, at that point you would have changed somebody's life in that way, helping them connect. So I want to challenge you a little bit when you say I don't deserve it. I think that I think that's a lot of people who think that their talent is, they're not deserving of it. But in what way do you feel that you don't deserve it? If Allah has given you that talent, it's because you are deserving of it. And you are, I always compare this to, how the sun's light through the moon, we can see the moon at night, right? Through the sun's light. So you could be that moon, right? At night, through the light of
what
God.
way to think of it.
But it's that's what it is. It all belongs to Allah at the end of the day.
No doubt.
But I want to challenge that belief that you're not deserving of it.
Yeah, I mean, to a certain extent, as I said, relating to, there's other people that are doing it in harder circumstances, and there's other people that, I mean, it's really difficult to explain certain things which I've seen. Of course, there's many experiences. Being a reciter, there's so much that comes to mind, especially during podcasts and interviews and things like these. Like, there's so much you can say. Definitely. But when it comes to saying that I don't feel that I deserve the talent that I've been blessed with, or Alhamdulillah, I've been blessed with it, and it's something that I now have to continue.
Well, you've
It's
been
just an
blessed.
opinion. End of the day, that
It's because we have so many youngsters maybe
yeah,
watching this
yeah,
podcast,
yeah,
and we want them to feel that they've been gifted
yeah,
this, you know?
definitely, definitely, definitely. The only problem is, as humans, I mean, human nature is that once you start understanding that you're very good at something, ego can come in between,
Yeah.
and that's any human. Like it's not impossible for ego not to come across, and I know that as a person of myself with my characteristics, like it's possible. It's possible that ego can come in between, and I don't want that to come in between.
So it's a way for you to remain grounded.
Yeah, definitely,
Yeah.
That's what it is.
That's what it
Definitely,
is.
that's what it is.
MashaAllah.
Yeah, otherwise, it can be a big issue, and no one wants to face that. I know, no one wants to face that. May
course.
Allah protect us, inshallah.
Inshallah. And I think through this podcast, I am hoping that a lot of youngsters who want to get into reciting
Yeah.
will watch this and want to take the first step.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's okay for people to reach out to you if they
of
need help.
course.
Obviously, on a European level, I'm sure there's many jamaats who have their own reciting
Yeah.
committee and their own helping committee when
Yeah.
it comes to that.
Yeah.
But being someone who was in Stanmore before, and now in Birmingham, you're going through different jamaats yourself. Would it be okay? And if so, how can they reach you if they want some help or some tips or some advice?
Sure. So my social media platforms, Instagram, Yusuf Okera 110. That's my username. And email as well, yusufokera@gmail.com, wherever is easier. I mean, you can even get through to me on YouTube. I respond to most of the comments on the comment section. So anything you put down there, inshallah, I can respond there as well, inshallah.
Thank you so much. And I think what you've shared today, I can see the journey, just like anyone else's journey. There are ups, there are downs, they're all the in-betweens.
Yeah.
But it's that what you said today was that you keep on going. You didn't give up, even though when you had comments maybe of people saying you're not going to do it, you're not going to be able to make it, you're not going to, they didn't believe in you.
That was a minority.
There's a
to be
minority.
honest, it was a minority.
But
The
it does
majority
affect
was very
you.
supportive. Yeah, definitely.
It affects you because we're human beings and we get affected. We try not to, but we still do sometimes get affected by people's comments. And the fact that you didn't give up and your self-management, it's quite impressive to see how you're self-managing. And credit to your parents as well for having inspired
I love them very
you.
much. It's all them. Definitely. It's everything is my parents, without a doubt. Honestly, sometimes I just sit down and think the different centers I've been to or different residencies, and just think of that one day. It was a memorable day, or like, wow, do you get me? It's like, it's just so thrilling. What can you say, man?
Absolutely.
Alhamdulillah.
And to be honest, a lot of youngsters as well, they they come to an age where, teenage, and they get into different troubles, different things that they shouldn't be getting. But you focus your energy on something that's bringing yourself value, bringing others value, that keep you grounded. So that for me was, an impressive skill, an impressive characteristic, mashallah, as well. And is there anything else you want to share with our viewers that you can bring value?
I mean, one more aspect of reciting which I'd like to bring is I'm not only a solo reciter, so alhamdulillah, there's also groups of reciters as well these days. Well, not these days, it started ages ago, but around the globe you have different groups in Urdu, in Urdu they call it Sangat. Sangat basically just means group. So I am a part of Sangat in Birmingham, APIS, Anjumane Pursadarane Imam Zaman Ajjalallahu Ta'ala Farja Sharif. That the group recitation started for me in London, in Stanmore. So in Stanmore, of course, sometimes when you come for Ashura or any wafat, you'd hear there's groups of reciters reciting together. That's something that was very important. And that's how it started for me in the beginning, being around the group in Stanmore. But of course, because I left Stanmore, I have my second family in Birmingham, which you may know of Abbas Lalji as well, very well-known reciter. And another thing I'd like to say is Abbas Bhai is someone that's really, really helped me become who I am today. If it wasn't for Abbas Bhai, there's many things I'd be lacking on. not only the vocal techniques, but also when it comes to respect. Abbas Bhai is someone I consider as an elder brother. And as we were speaking about competition before and like, giving people that name, I mean, not many people do that. Sitting on a podcast, they don't really mention the people that helped them become who they are, or even, do you get what I'm saying? Like, support their name. So that's a big thing. Abbas Bhai and the rest of the group members have supported me across the few years. Being in Birmingham, leaving my home was hard. I mean, leaving London, coming to Birmingham was really difficult, because I knew of many people in the community, but I always felt that would now be a lack in programs. I wouldn't attend as many programs as I attended in London, so maybe many people wouldn't know of me. But because of APIS is what it stands for. APIS actually supported me throughout, and we'd always be going around the UK to recite at different places. So that's also another form of unity that brings us all together, and that also helps us remain disciplined and focused in the services of Abu Abdullah alayhi salam.
MashaAllah, that's very commendable.
There's different routes. Yeah,
I love that you're always bringing the spirit of collaboration,
Yeah,
and I think that's something that we really, as a community, need to embody.
No, honestly, I say this with a lot of volume. Abbas Bhai is definitely someone that's played a big role in my recitation. I mean, only the person that's gone through it can say it, and I'm not saying this to exaggerate. I know he may hear this after as well, but it's a genuine statement from my heart, and alhamdulillah, I can't thank him enough. Alhamdulillah, may Mawla bless him and his family, and all of those that are part of APIS. Shahid Ladak, his father Mahmood uncle, also a great asset. Alhamdulillah.
Yeah, alhamdulillah. I'm sure you have many names in mind.
Too many names.
Too many names.
It's very difficult sitting in podcasts and interviews.
No, absolutely.
I've not done one in quite a while, in fact.
Yeah.
That's another thing.
No, you're a busy man.
Not at all.
But through this podcast, what we want to achieve is we want to bridge gaps.
Yeah, definitely.
We want to bring Jamaats together, especially within Europe.
Very important.
We want to create those connections.
Yeah.
We want to really change this whole, competition into collaboration. We want to start using new words, new concepts, and hopefully help people, because that's what we want.
Definitely.
Today we're here. Tomorrow, if we give our skills or our talent to someone else, they can continue the legacy, inshallah. That's the hope. But thank you so much for sharing your journey, for being so honest, because sometimes people want to see, people just want to talk about the good things, but actually people need to know that there's also the challenging things that you've learned from, and that that's helped you become who you are today as well. So one last question before we finish. How has this experience changed you as a person?
So life-to-life techniques or life-to-life qualities is definitely changed of mine. Be it time. If you realized I was actually here earlier than what I told you. Now that's because I know that I have to be here. If I'm not here on time, then that means I'm missing out on the opportunity. But also another thing is I'm giving myself a bad reputation for the first time. I actually came 10 minutes before expected. I was meant to be late myself, but I managed to get here and made sure that I get here on time. So time is a very big thing. You have to know how to handle your time.
Wow.
Alhamdulillah.
That's changed you. Wow, amazing. And what does connection mean to you?
Connection is simply Hussein alayhi salam. That's the one word. Connection is Hussein alayhi salam, and learning from the sacrifices that he took on the day of Ashura, sacrificing his family, his world, to save the name of Islam, and for us to be here today, alhamdulillah. That's genuine connection, and that's a lesson not only for us Shias, also for those that are outside as well. Alhamdulillah.
Thank you so much for being a wonderful guest on the KHOJA Connection podcast.
It was a great honor. Jazakumullahu khairan.
Assalamu alaikum, dear viewers. This is the KHOJA Connection podcast, growing through conversations. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. This is run by KHOJA, and press the notification button so that you can get all of our podcasts, and they are one after another amazing, exciting conversations.